From KUNC and the NPR network, this is In The NoCo. I'm Erin O'Toole. Today we're talking about an idea that's thousands of years old, but also pretty risque. Of all the responses to the results of last week's presidential election, one of the most unusual involves something called the 4B movement.
In the wake of Donald Trump's historic win, disappointed women are actually swearing off men. No marrying men, no giving birth, no dating men, and no sex with men.
The 4B movement started a few years ago in South Korea, but it gained attention on social media in the U.S. after Election Day. Some women equated President-elect Donald Trump's victory to a low point for women's rights and said they're cutting off relationships with men. But women withholding physical contact from men is not a new idea. It's the subject of the Greek comedy Lysistrata by the playwright Aristophanes, which was first staged more than 2,400 years ago. The female characters in the play withhold their affections to protest a war, and it ultimately leads to peace and harmony. The show's director, Benjamin Kessler, says this production is a conversation starter that really taps into the current political mood in potent ways.
Regardless of what side of the political spectrum that you sit on, the focus of treating people like they are humans and treating people like all humans to have dignity and deserve some equality and some equity in their practices. I think those are just beautiful, beautiful things to talk about.
So in the introduction, I mentioned the 4B movement, which is getting some attention on social media. Women withhold contact from men, including physical contact. I'm wondering, what did you think when you heard about that movement?
I think it's a fantastic idea, the concept. And I think it's super interesting because I don't think that concept is specific towards either of the sexes or genders, right? There is so much power in physicality. And I think being able to honor our own power it helps us also recognize and honor others' power.
Beyond war and conflict, a lot of people are voicing concerns about their rights. For one thing, Colorado voters added the right to abortion access to the state constitution last week. How do you think staging this play underscores conversations about women's rights and female empowerment?
Oh, I think what that does is it gives us it gives us a starting point, right? One of the messages that I always like to tell anybody and everybody, right, is that the conversation itself needs to be the starting point, and the conversation in civility, right, getting outside of an echo chamber, right, because if we are all talking to the same people that have the same beliefs and the same feelings, that doesn't promote movement one way or the other, right? So focusing again back on the ability to talk to someone that has a different viewpoint and share something new with them, or better understand, right? By better understanding my opponent's side, I can better understand and support my own side. Or I can learn something about my own side or something about the other side, right? That civility, in my opinion, has been lost in the last 10 years. And it is truly only through that medium of togetherness and partnership and working that we can truly move forward, right? So focusing on the power that we have to start that conversation and to get out of echo chambers and to create and push civility, I think is so important in any conversation and in any movement, one direction or the other.
Women withholding their affections is a risque plotline, even now in our contemporary times. How do people react when you tell them about this production?
I honestly have to tell you, my biggest concern is that our audience is like going to get up and leave in the middle of the show. Like that is
Oh,
that is
no.
100% my biggest fear. It's so funny because some people are like, okay, yeah, this sounds like a really awesome, cool idea. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
And other people look at me very cross-eyed, for lack of a better way of saying it, like, what are you doing? And I think again, it's when we highlight the things that we all already have and force people to think about them differently. That is a really easy way and makes people go, huh.
The recent election, of course, has been impossible to ignore. President-elect Trump returning to the White House probably means a different approach to some of the conflicts in the world. I'm wondering what the mood has been like for you and your actors as you have done your final rehearsals in recent weeks.
We actually had rehearsal the entire week of the election, and we spent a lot of time talking and continuously talking about humanity, right? And what it means to be a human being and what it means to treat people as other human beings. And not specifically in line with one party or the other or one specific viewpoint or another. And I think it's super important that those are the types of messages that we are really pushing to the world and anybody that's willing to listen.
I want to talk about the concept a little bit more because it is so cool. You've designed this to be set in a loft in New York City, a little like the TV show Friends. What do you think that adds to the production?
I think that modernness of it, because the 90s really are not that far behind us, right? Like that is
true.
That is a blink in an eye in talking about
Greek history from 2,000 years ago, especially.
Right. I think the portion of that really made it so we can connect on a very normal, everyday human level. And see ourselves in those situations, right? And the hope is that we can sit there and go, hey, I've had similar conversations. I know the feeling and how it translates to modern day world.
Lysistrata is being performed this weekend at Ames Community College in Greeley by the Ames Community Theater Group. And on an interesting note, the theater group will host some booths from nonprofits that support women in different ways. That includes a group that helps female entrepreneurs, as well as nonprofits that support female survivors of domestic violence. We'll put a link to more information about the production in our show notes and at KUNC.org. And we love to hear from our listeners here on In The NoCo. Many of you wrote in to say you appreciated our coverage of Colorado ballot items and other local coverage of the election from In The NoCo and the KUNC newsroom. We heard from people like Leonard and Judy, who wrote in saying they valued our coverage of Prop 127, which would have banned the hunting of mountain lions. And we got plenty of other feedback from listeners about other issues on the ballot as well. We cover local elections because we know it's important for you to understand those issues when it's time to vote and to understand the impact when a measure passes or fails. And we appreciate that you took the time to say you appreciate us. Now, if you want to drop us a line, it's easy to do. Email us at noco@kunc.org. That's NOCO@kunc.org. That's it today for In The NoCo. I'm Erin O'Toole. Thanks for listening.